All right, we're good now. Lord Zannul, how's it going, man?
Man, it's going great. Thanks for having me.
So, we spoke a little bit earlier, and I just want to dive right into this one because this one seems really, really interesting to me. You told me that you worked with Axelmar in the second game, sorry, the second iteration on Holy Wars, right?
Yeah, what wound up happening was I wound up sending him a tell at one point on the forums, and he got back to me, and we started going back and forth. And then I started working with him almost on a daily basis. We were on Skype together, and I was just trying to go over some of the stuff that they could possibly change to make a real impact in UW. And the basic gist of it was is that they just didn't have the manpower to get a lot of stuff done. So any ideas I had, he was like, well, that would take us like 3 months worth of dev resources. And I was like, how many devs do you have? And he was like, well, basically me and a couple assistant devs.
Wow.
So yeah, it was basically him doing all the work.
Wow. And when was this? Was this at like kind of the end of Unholy Wars last few months or?
Yeah, it was more towards the end, like right before he decided to leave, which I take a little bit of responsibility in because that whole shenanigans that went down with him talking about Darkfall 1, that was pretty much my fault.
Right.
I told him about Darkfall 1 and how I thought he really should go check it out. And he said he never really even looked at it. And he said it's on his computer and he could log in anytime he wanted. And I was
Wow.
like, yeah, I was like, bro, go check it out. It's actually pretty
Wait, wait,
impressive.
wait,
I think
wait.
you get a kick out of it.
So you're telling me that he had like a copy of Darkfall 1 on his computer the whole time that they were working on Unholy Wars.
Yeah, he had the single player or whatever. He said he could log in and check it out. And I was like, well, do that. And then talk to me tomorrow after you do that.
Wow.
And I could talk about this now because he's no longer with AV and
Right,
everything. And I
yeah.
told him I wouldn't say anything while he was. But he comes back and he says, I have no idea why I'm working on UW when I have this amazing game on my PC.
Wow. Heard
I
it here
know. It was
first.
pretty cool.
Holy shit. So this whole time he's sitting on this gold, this beautiful, amazingness that is Darkfall 1 and he doesn't look at it until you're like, "Dude, go check that shit out."
He didn't have any idea. He really
Wow.
didn't.
Wow. So really, we could blame you for Darkfall coming back then. Because, really, if it wasn't for, I think, Axomar really kind of, throwing that out there in the universe that, hey, this is a possibility. What do you guys think about bringing DF1 back? I think that movement,
Yeah.
that's what started it all,
I mean,
really.
I'd love to say that it's my fault, but it's not. It's, you know what? It's really just Andrew's. Andrew put so much tenacity into getting that all up and running, and then how he pulled it all together and had everybody else jump on board was just sheer
Yeah.
miracle. It really was.
Oh, yeah. You seen the video that they made, right? The kind of like mini documentary about how everything started and whatnot when the game released.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's actually a really interesting story how he even was able to just whip it up out of nowhere, just off of a post like, hey, anybody want to bring DF1 back? Actually that
Yeah, and the people they had, in the beginning were all professional people. People would post on the forums and say, "Oh, it's just a bunch of you know, people that don't know what they're doing," but they all were actually in their field of doing this stuff. And remember, Andrew was in game management before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hmm. Which that actually kind of reminds me. You also mentioned something about being a part of the design team before the game came out. How did that go about? How did you get on the design team? How did that all happen?
It was pretty simple. Me and Andrew had been talking, and they wanted me to come on board because I had a unique perspective on the new players and stuff like that, and some ideas of what I thought should be worked on. And they all knew that I was working with Axomar, and I had a lot of information from what happened with UW. So, I jumped on board and I was really excited and wanted to work on it. But, it got to be really time consuming work. We were in meetings till like 2 o'clock in the morning, especially if you get on like a really serious topic, like everyone remembers fizzles, right?
Right, yeah. Oh yeah.
So we get on the topic of fizzles, and that's a real battle. It wasn't really my battle, but I was getting these little messages, and people were like, "Man, you got to speak up about this. This is a very serious topic." And I'm like, well, I guess, but I like to pick my battles, and that just wasn't my battle. My battle was I was trying to get everything I could for new player retention because I knew how bad that really was.
Right, yeah. For sure. I mean, I think they've done a lot of quality of life changes that have definitely helped. What are your opinions on them so far? I mean, the GUI, in my opinion, is great. Honestly.
No, I love all the changes that they've done, and I know people are angry at certain things, but you got to understand, it's a group of people that are doing this out of love, and it is so time consuming.
Oh
Now,
yeah, man.
they all got full-time jobs, and then they're coming home and doing this too.
Right.
I really think about that.
Yeah, I mean, you were saying how when you were on there, man, staying up till 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and then you think these guys are doing it for completely free.
Yeah, because you didn't want to be the one to tap out.
Right.
Right. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're just like, we're getting this subject done. And I just got so busy in my professional life that I told them, I told Andrew one day, I was just like, you know what, I'm not going to be able to commit to this. I felt bad. Yeah. I could have probably dragged my feet and stayed with the group and met when I could, and they probably would have been okay with it. But I just think it wasn't respectful to everyone else who was giving their 100%, and I just couldn't do it.
Well, I mean, is the door still open? You think one day you might just say, hey, you know what? I still got some awesome ideas. Let me back into
I'd have
everything.
to be able to commit so much time. I mean, I spoke to Deathlock, and I was like, dude, have you even played? He's like, no, bro. It's like, I haven't even been able to play. It's like, I did jump on the test server, and I was like, oh man. I was like, yeah, see, I'd rather be a customer.
Poor Dust, man. That dude, I know that dude gets hit up at least 50 times a day. He's got to, like on Discord and, all the other ways of reaching him. Yeah,
I'm sure people find unique ways of getting in touch with him. I know it happens.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, I would think that the pressure involved in it as well, like especially with our community, our special little snowflake of a community, like, man, it's got to be stressful.
Oh, I'm sure it's 100% stressful, and that's the thing. It's like, okay, these guys are really dedicating this time. I hope they can maintain that kind of endurance, because that's really what it's going to take for them to, just keep moving forward with this.
I honestly have faith in them, man. With the amount of changes that they've made, the fact that they even were able to bring it back and do as much as they have, and especially knowing how AV treated it, and that this whole time the changes that us as a community begged for, and they said that they couldn't do it, or whatever their excuse was, or just flat out ignored it. And now we have a company that's actually like listening to the community and what we want. I think it's great.
I say it all the time. I really do think they made history with this, where a game that did exist, the players come in, take it over, and launch it. And the amount of changes they've done, I'm so impressed.
Yeah, for sure. Well, okay, so let me ask you. All right, so you're on a design team for a little bit of time.
Before they launched. I had to leave once they launched. They were doing their own thing.
Well, how long were you on the design team?
Oh man, I don't remember. It was from the point of when we put it together, and then
so you were there from the beginning,
right before. Oh yeah, I was with them from the beginning.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. Okay, well, let me ask you this. All right, so if you could change one thing, like in your department, which is new player retention, that's what you were on there for, right?
Yes.
Essentially. Okay, if you had to change one thing, what would it be? If you could be back on the team and you say, hey guys, this is what I think we need to work on, what would it be?
I try to devote all resources to building a new player island.
Like a newbie island. Like, have you ever played RuneScape?
No,
Okay,
never did.
well, in RuneScape they have like this instance island, but of course RuneScape everything is instance, yada yada yada. But they did have this island that essentially was a starting island where you got on. It was like a tutorial as well, kind of like the Unholy Wars one, you know, like they pop you on an island. You remember that shit when you first started?
Yes, except they force you to go through the whole thing.
Right, exactly. There's no like skip button or I've already done this. Right, yeah. So you're thinking something like that.
Yeah, my concept, and yeah, I could just talk about it because it was, basically my concept that I threw out to Andrew one day was a little island, and they go through the whole process of what Darkfall really is about. And then at the end, they have to take this ship ride because they wind up building the ship through the process of, these new players' journey. And there's no way they can leave the island. It's impossible. You're going to meet up with a Kraken, and he's going to destroy you, your ship, everything on it, and then you wind up in Agon, and it says, "Welcome to Agon."
So you basically wind up dead at the Bind Stone. Welcome to Darkfall.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Actually, I could definitely get down with that. And then that way, it kind of sends the players through the crafting experience and the gathering and killing monsters on that shit. Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty awesome idea. For sure.
I was trying to prevent people just making alts and just being able to sell material,
Yeah.
with no everything for how I work on design is based off of risk reward. If you always apply that equation to it, you can usually come out with something that's going to be extremely fair. The problem is that we don't always look at risk reward with unbiased eyes, and we think that the risk and the reward is correct when it's really not.
You mean like in the eyes of a vet, for someone that would think, oh, that's not very risky, whereas a new player that knows nothing about the game would just have a terrible time doing it?
Exactly.
Gotcha. I mean, that makes sense, especially when you think like, from a vet perspective, it's very difficult to put yourself in the shoes of a noob. Like you think to yourself like, oh, I'm just going to, grind my character. I got to get great sword mastery or, whatever weapon you use. And then I'm going to go do this, level this up on this type of mob and get this, material so I could do it. Like it's laid out for us because we've done, because we've done it before, but you got these brand new players who are just dropped into it and are like, what the hell am I supposed to do again? I'm going to go, and then you see these new players that are like going and killing brownies or some shit.
Yeah, you can't unlearn what you know. So when you dive into it, you have all these advantages, and then you start forgetting how big of a difference these small little details of your character actually mean. I mean, I remember just when this game launched and I was going around and I'm like, I just died to a goblin. I can't believe that. But it happens because
wait, you died to a goblin in this iteration?
This game. Yeah,
oh,
in this game.
Man.
I totally forgot about like stamina. I was sitting there fighting this goblin, and I looked down and I'm like, oh my god, I have no stamina. And when you have no stamina, you're just done. You can't get away, you can't do nothing. They pretty much just kill you.
Man, and especially the way they scale now. It's like a horde of goblins on you, man. There's like 30 goblins attacking you. It's not much you can do about that one.
Right now, so now these players are trying to loot and they're trying to skin, and some don't even know that they're supposed to be skinning, and they're doing all this stuff.
Right, yeah.
And they're just dying to these goblins, and it does happen. But that's not the part that's the most frustrating to the new players. The part that's the most frustrating from the ones that I've talked to, and these are like, veteran FPS players and those kind of players, is that the difference between the new player to the veteran just seems so extreme from their end. Granted, they can't see what the veteran is and what all those skill sets would equate to. But when they get into those conflicts with them, it's like bam, 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 they're dead. And they have no understanding of how it happened.
Right, it's just like a flash of light and it's like, oh shit, I'm dead. And then
Right.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like they need to be able to learn from the experience. And really, all they learned was, all right, I have to be a little bit more careful where I go.
Right, because some big badass is gonna come out and, give me the hands in 2 seconds. I mean, yeah, if you really think about it, if you know nothing about the game, you're just going to the game, you have no idea about the combat, you don't know how any of that works. Let's assume that you don't have a clan and you don't have any friends that know the game. Could you imagine, like, okay, my character, for example, I have all my R90s to 75, my AoEs. I'm getting close to the point to where I'm done. Imagine me rolling up on a brand new player, eye-rotting them, waffing them, disabling them, and raining them down. Like they would be like, what the hell just happened to me?
First of all, I don't know if you would have to do all that.
No, but for sure. For sure. I know it's overkill, but in this scenario, let's just assume, you're pulling it all out and you just completely Shrek this guy. He's not going to have any idea what happened to him.
Yeah, and that's the point. And when I used to teach new players, one of the things I always told them was try and find somebody that you can barely just die to in a duel. Right. And that's the person you want to keep fighting, because that's how you're going to learn the most. I remember when I was trying to get better and I fought Random Hero, and that was just a joke. I mean, he just utterly destroyed me so quickly. I didn't even understand what was going on. So I had to wind up fighting other people that I could try and learn what was happening. And by natural progression, I actually learned to start just trying to stay alive. I wasn't even trying to win. I was just trying to stay alive. So I learned to parry a lot. I learned to transfer. I learned to drink pots when I could. It was more about me just trying to stay alive. And through that, I created more longevity within the duel so that I could learn even more.
Right. Survival. I think survival is one of those skills that's really overlooked, especially people that are like, super DPS-y, and they're like, dude, this is the best DPS rotation, yada, 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 And they got amazing aim. You got these dudes out here that have amazing aim, amazing sticky back, but they get dropped like a sack of potatoes because they don't know how to survive. A lot of people don't know how to use the sword and board and whatnot. So yeah, I think that's kind of one of the first things I learned as well, was how to actually stay alive and survive in a fight, and especially when you have pressure on you. I think that's really important. But I do want to go back to what you were talking about earlier, which is the newbie lands. Now, from my understanding, you're like a superhero in human lands. Is that right? Like you're like Lord Zannul, the protector of the Mercians, right?
Yeah, the actual term that was used was Hero of Mercia.
Hero of Mercia, yeah. So what got you into that? Why did you decide to like, I'm just gonna RP it up in human lands and protect all the noobs?
Oh no, now we're gonna go into real life stuff. I'm just a bully killer, like in real life. Like in school and stuff like that, I would get into fights for other people. One of the ways that I met one of my first students, martial arts instructor, was he was getting beat up outside of his house by a much older kid, and I went up and I beat the heck out of that kid and then carried him into his house. Later on, he winds up seeing me again and says, "Hey, do you remember me?" And I was like, "No." And he told me the story, and I was like, "Oh my God, I had no idea." And he wound up becoming my first student. And through the course of his life, I wound up instructing him in more things than just martial arts. It's pretty much how to be who he was. So everything I try and do is always defend the little guy, help out those that can't protect themselves, really. So it mimicked itself into this game.
I gotcha. So basically, what you're trying to say is you're like Jason Bourne IRL, like you're an ultra badass.
People like to call me Batman.
Batman, Jesus. What do you do? What do you practice?
I've studied a lot, but the thing that I was teaching was ninjutsu.
Damn, you're a ninja. You're telling me you're a ninja? Damn.
Yes.
Wow, so,
and my closest friends inside of Darkfall do actually know that.
Oh wow. Well, now everybody knows.
I'm an older person now. It doesn't matter.
So has anybody ever pissed you off in Darkfall and you go full ninja on them, track them down?
And no, it's not like that. I did have to pull my sword on somebody one time.
Oh
in real
shit!
life.
You got a sword?
Yeah.
What kind of sword you got? You got a katana? What do you got?
No, I have one that I made. It's called an Inashito.
Oh wow! You actually made your own sword?
Yeah, I wound up working with a welder, and I was able to get it done. But we're getting way off track from Darkfall.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I don't know, man. You know, swords, ninjas, all that stuff. Man, I don't know.
It's just a lot of times people think that the person behind the computer is so different than what it is. But mine really is more of a mirror of me. It's just kind of like who I am.
So basically, you're like, you're a superhero in game, and you're also an ultra badass IRL.
Used to be. Like I said, I'm older now. I'm 42 years old.
I mean, do you lose it though?
So much badass that you're gonna be.
Do you lose it though? Really? I think once you're a badass, you're always kind of a badass, right?
No, but you don't have to apply it the same as you get older. Less and less conflicts, come across your desk, so to speak. Now I just apply a lot of my knowledge more towards my work, which is I direct films, music videos, stuff like that.
That's cool. That's cool. So you're actually in. So you say okay. So you direct films, you do music videos, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let me ask you this: you ever thought about doing anything for Darkfall, or do you just not have the time?
Yeah. Well,
or?
that was also why I was involved with them, because I was actually gonna help them with some of the videos and stuff, and then again, I was so busy, I decided that I wasn't going to be able to do it, and plus they had such a great video guy. Umberto's really good at what he does.
Oh yeah,
so,
for sure. Yeah.
It was just better. It was just better to do that with my schedule than to make them wait for me.
Yeah. Oh no.
But I have talked to Andrew many times, and I said, man, I'm really working on trying to figure out how to do a film for Darkfall. I would love to do that.
Dude, I think it's something that people may not necessarily. Well, I don't know. I think Darkfall is one of those games that's so obscure and so niche that not many people really know about it, And I've always wanted something that really showcases just how badass Darkfall is. But then you kind of, you go through the videos, and really it's just PvP videos and siege videos. There's nothing like, that really gets you. Like, okay, there has been a few Darkfall trailers, like we did some of this stuff in beta and alpha and whatnot. But I've seen some of those things, like World of Warcraft has a lot where it's almost like cinematic. You know what I mean?
Well, you also don't have the tools that you have in this game. Like, to give somebody a free roving camera is very powerful in terms of that's how you can design it to be cinematic. It takes a lot of effort to try to do it without those tools.
Yeah. Well, they just recently released the public test server. What do you think about maybe them just giving people, or maybe even a few people, content creators, the ability to fly around and do stuff on that server?
Yeah, and that would help a lot, because the creative aspect to people who can do that, they can really pull it out because they'll have the time and the passion to put all of that together. And they'll get, actors that, I know it sounds funny, but you really do have to have actors. You have actors, and because I actually worked on that one video back in the day. It was No Land for Agon or something like that. I can't remember. It was like a takeoff from
No Agon for Old Men.
That's it. Yep. Adune does some really cool videos, and I thought it would be really cool if we worked together, and so we did, and we created that.
Nice. Yeah, that's pretty sick. Yeah, stuff like that. Like things that are not necessarily like a PvP showcase or a siege showcase, but maybe some more RP aspects and elements, something to kind of just just pure entertainment, you know, like the World of Warcraft stuff that was talking
Yeah, it takes so much time and energy to do stuff like that, though. So, like I said, it's got to be the right type of person that has the time, the passion, the energy to do that. Because to put together the whole crew that had to do that and all the actors involved and everything, I mean, that was like a 5-day shoot, if I remember right.
Dang. You know, well, actually, I know just the guy that would love to do something like that, and I'm actually gonna call him out. Sick Khan, you know of him?
No, I don't think I do.
I believe he started in Unholy Wars. I don't know, but yeah, he's been pretty good. He's actually gonna start editing these podcasts and some of the ANN videos and whatnot. So that'll be pretty cool for him. Different little editing style, maybe, or you know, something other than Umberto. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely tons of people who have these great, you know, RP ideas on Darkfall, but they just, like you said, you know, they don't have the fly cam, they don't have the necessary stuff for it. Moving on, I kind of want to talk about, you know, your activity in game so far. So what have you been doing? What's your play style? How are you playing Darkfall? How are you enjoying the game?
I'm a solo player right now. I decided that I was going to get in, try to grind up as fast as I could to get myself a little bit more stable. So that way I could be a little bit more casual. Because for me, Darkfall isn't really a casual game. It just requires a little bit too much energy. And to do anything in the game, you really have to kind of commit to some time. So I was trying to get involved. I'm kind of glad you brought this up because there was something that I noticed when I was in the game. I got to a wall pretty quickly where I just couldn't accomplish a lot of things because a lot of my gold resources were being taken up by so many different aspects of leveling that I got to a point where I was like, I want to work on my crafting, but I need to put some money into meditation too. So it was like I was unsure of what to do. And I wound up just saying, you know what, I think I'm just going to log off and take a little bit of a break. And I did. And I think I took off for a couple weeks almost, just logging in, checking on my meditation. Yeah, pretty much just logging in once in a while. And I was just more focused on my real life stuff. And then I kind of came back and I was trying to work on it a little bit. And then they launched those GTTs, which helped me so much because I was just like, okay.
The GTTs, right?
Yeah, the game time tokens.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
because
tokens, yeah.
For me, you know, that's perfect. I look at it as entertainment. So, you know, people get all up in arms about it, but really, I mean, when you look at it, it's like no different than if you're going to put out money to go to the movies or something.
Yeah, it's like so. It's like what are the prices now? Like I think 10 or 11K for a month.
Yeah, something like that. So I was just like, all right, I'm going to buy a bunch. I bought a bunch and started trading them and got the gold and was able to fuel my crafting a little bit more. And it gave me more choices. And I found that it helped motivate me to be in the game a little bit more. And I was kind of putting that into like a parallel with some of these other players where I think the key is just to keep them moving forward. If you have these points where there's gaps. Yeah, if you have these points where there's gaps, it just doesn't do it. And one of the ways that I really think that needs to happen is I really think they need to open up the faucets more. And I know I'll get a lot of shit for that.
So what do you mean? What do you mean by opening the faucets? Where are you coming from? Because people get a little antsy.
I know.
When change things here.
I know. Anytime you want to change things, people freak out. Yeah. But the thing is that you got to keep people moving, and it's almost like momentum. And if they would just open up the faucets more, where things were a little bit easier to get, a little bit more gold, definitely more enchanting mats. That is just, what do they like to say? Cancer.
Didn't they up the drop rate and skin rate on enchanting mats though? I thought that was somewhere in the past tense.
I don't think they did on the enchanting mats. I mean, I understand where they had to pull the gold out of the larger mobs. That was really necessary.
Oh yeah, for sure. I like that change. I think the effect on the economy so far has been great on that. But as far as the enchanting mats, like from what I'm aware of, they added like new enchanting mats and buffed other monsters for the enchanting mats. Like, for example, I think there's Shark Bile now and some other stuff. That's Q3 Bile, you know, or maybe it's Q2. I'm not sure. But they definitely did do something with enchanting. I just don't have the patch notes to confirm it.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen the different enchanting mats and stuff like that, but listen, my opinion is more on the side of I would rather have more come into the economy because I think you have to break up everything into two parts. You have to break it up into everything that is PvP related. And what I mean by that is I mean crafting as well. Crafting is still PvP related because
Oh yeah,
everybody
for
needs
sure.
that gear, needs that armor. They're all grinding out to try to accomplish that. There are a lot of players that have a bunch of alts and all they're doing is fueling their crafting so that they can eventually go out and go PvP with the gear sets that they want, with the enchanting sets that they want. I mean, look at some of the videos that are already out. We already have people going out in my endgame gear. Okay.
Right.
I was enchanted with slashing, piercing, fire, encumbrance, stamina efficiency. Okay, that, and I guarantee you they're Q3, Q4 already. So that's
Oh,
the kind
easily
of
Q4.
gap.
Easily
Yeah,
Q4.
that's the kind of gap that you're looking at with new players coming in, and
Yeah.
that's enormous.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's actually pretty crazy if you think about it. Okay, so even on like completely even level, right? You fight somebody and they have, they have feather, they have mana efficiency, magnitude, and I'm just thinking of a mage set. Uh and stamina efficiency, the four, key, and let's say keen on their weapon, right? You got those 5 enchants versus someone who's in a completely unenchanted bag. The person who actually has those enchanting mats, they're at a huge advantage, insane advantage. So basically, what you're saying is they need to add in more enchanting mats, or at least make them more readily available, so that people can kind of, so that gap can become a little bit smaller. Is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, because unfortunately, the crafting is tied to the PvP. I know that's
Right.
not the way that it was intended,
Oh well, I
but
mean that's the way they made that's how it is now, because mob dropped weapons aren't nearly as good as the player crafted weapons now.
exactly. So in DF1, it was designed that way where you could hit the mob spawns and that, and you didn't really have to focus on the crafting. But now you really have to crafting if you want to be in that level of competition.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about fair fights and having this fairness, but there really is no fairness. They're looking for an advantage. Everyone's looking to try and get as much of an advantage as they can.
Oh
That's
yeah,
what
I
I've
mean,
been seeing.
man, there's people that literally are grinding from 75 to 100 just because it's like an extra 9%. I think it's like 9% or something like that to his spell or to his school, as far as damage or mana efficiency or whatever. I
Yeah,
mean,
and to get back to a little thing that we were saying about the new players, one of the things that I personally experienced is I started talking to some of the newer clans, some that I knew from before that I knew were coming back. So I started chatting with them and jumping in their comms and stuff. And then one I actually joined because I just thought, all right, I'm going to go help these guys because they could really use it. Pretty much within a couple weeks, they all just disappeared. So
wow.
I jumped in. So I jumped into comms with them, and I was like, "Hey, so what's going on?" And they were like, "Well, we kind of all decided that we just really didn't want to grind it out like that. We'd just rather go play something else. We just don't have the time to really dedicate that much time to grind and get up to that level."
So was it like magic, or was it the gear grind? Because right now there's the character grind, which they've shortened significantly, but now I feel like there's this gear grind that wasn't necessarily there before.
Well, it's every grind. It's not just one. I think that's where everybody keeps getting confused. They're not just focused on one. They're focused on all of them. They do understand that there is a player skill grind. They do understand that. The problem is that you can't really even start to focus on your player skill until you've gotten a baseline of the other stuff that you need. I mean, think about how different your character reacts in duels versus 400 HP and 350 HP or 200 stam. You know, there's a really big difference on what you can do. It's almost like going to a poker table and having a whole big stack of chips and having a small stack of chips. You play completely differently based on your chips.
So basically, and I can totally agree with you on that one, but so you think the underlying problem here, like, okay, I know you say they're all the same, right? But in my opinion, the character grind really has been toned down a lot, and the gear grind now feels like it's more of a grind than the character grind itself. That's just my personal opinion. For me, playing around, running around, like going out and get Celandine ore, then getting the Q4 enchanting mats, and that feels more of a grind to me than going and bolting down a monster, or, leveling up my rays or whatever it may be. And I think that's something that really alleviates that problem for me was the essence system and the scrolls that they've introduced to the game. Now you can just go farm gold and scroll your character up. Whereas you can't really, there's nothing that you can really go, and you kind of have to go out and get those mats. You have to go out there and get that ore and ingots and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, technically, people say you could just use the gold to get it, and you could, but again, gold is used for so much. That's why you see so many people saying willing to sell all sorts of stuff because they're just trying to fuel the amount of gold that they need to keep progressing their character.
Yeah. So okay. So do you think there's an issue with gold itself?
Oh man, it's just so complex at this level because now you're talking about all the essences on how they built it. They toned down the cost of the skills, and then it's just because we have to fuel so much. You got to do your crafting.
Yeah.
Pretty much everyone's got to do crafting now, which
I'm
can change
not,
if they
tell you
do.
what, dude, I am not a crafter. I have one dude. Okay, I have one dude. All right. He is not amazing at the game, but he crafts his little ass off, and I give him pretty much everything. I'm just like, here you go, dude. You craft, give me some stuff, and that's pretty much it. Like, there's
Yeah,
people
but
that
see,
just
you're
solely craft.
lucky. You're lucky you have someone like that. Because I was
Yes,
talking to a
yes.
couple of my PK buddies, and they were like, "Yeah, our boyer left." So now they're
Yeah, you pump them up, and then they're
pros.
just like, they peace out.
Yeah.
It's not a
So I
big
mean,
deal.
it ultimately comes down to, especially the PKers, they want to have this gear. They want to have it so that they can keep going out and keep playing the game. And when you think about that in its core, you're talking about the base unit of the game. Base unit of the game is your gear. Yeah, you have your character, but you don't go out naked. You equip yourself.
Right.
And that is a base unit. So if you don't have your base unit, then that means the momentum of the game completely slows because you don't have your base unit.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. I can see that. So, I mean, if you were gonna switch things around, if it was a perfect world for Lord Zannul, how would you do it? What would you do?
See, I come from the opinion where I really think that they should lower the value on stuff. I do not think that it should have as high of a value. I believe that if you lower the value on it, more people have more gear, more people go out and do things. There's more interaction, there's more conflict. Not only that, but the whole concept behind a clan is completely backwards because now you have people that are in these clans and they're supposed to help defend holdings and take more holdings, but the problem is that they have to finance their own gear and their own operation. And you look in real world situation, militaries are paid, they're equipped, they're fully geared, they're said, here, go defend this.
Right. Yeah.
It's completely opposite in this game. You're telling people to get their own shit and go out and do this. And by the way, don't touch our mine. you know, I
That's
know
very
that
true,
happens in
man.
a lot of clans.
Oh yeah.
So I just would flip the script and be like, hey, let's make this a lot easier to have what I call our base unit. And I had a couple ideas on how to do that, but again, that changes the game a lot to do
Yeah.
that. And I know it's not going to happen because the resources aren't available to just change the entire game that way.
Well, I think the way that they wanted to do it originally was that they wanted to make rares rare. And I don't think that's the case right now. I think that, yes, rares are rare, and the only people who have access to them are the ultra badasses, those wolves. And that's it. You got the big fish taking over the golems and the mines, and they're pretty much monopolizing all of the late gear. And you got the little guys, especially the little guys who are by themselves and don't have a dedicated crafter, that are just getting completely screwed over.
Yeah, because you got to basically try to dedicate all your gold to trying to get those rares, which
Right.
just isn't really a feasibility. Because then once you have the rares, I mean, you're crafting up that high to even be able to use the rares.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that might actually really, really help the economy for the little guys at least is the introduction of the player vendors. I think putting player vendors, especially in NPC cities or chaos cities or, wherever, if they make it to where you can deploy it wherever, I think that could be really, really good for people that don't have access to a large clan. Maybe they could even make it to where instead of it costing gold, you can do transaction through other currencies. For example, rare ores or whatever. Imagine somebody can put a Dawn Razor under vendor, and they want lean spar ingots for it because they want to go to that next tier. Whatever it is that they're grinding, and they don't necessarily need gold. They need ingots or some shit like that.
Yeah, we'll see. It may have the opposite effect though, because now you have a platform where anybody can go to, see it, and just buy it. So now you're talking about people that have access to gold,
Right.
which are those, wolves and high-end people you're talking about, and they can just buy whatever they want. I mean, look at trade chat already. It's already starting to happen. You got the people that are saying, hey, I will buy rares at 1K a piece. And
Just
then
because they
they
can, yeah.
Yeah, and then they just wipe the market of those, and everyone's going, okay, where are the rares?
Right. And then since they've made rares even harder to get, then yeah. So I mean, my
Well, it's also
suggestion.
really necessary. I mean, I know because I went out with R40s. That's a big difference from going out with R50s.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's kind of getting to the point to where, um, either they need to make like mastery tier weapons and armor extremely hard to get or easy to get. I don't think there's can be a middle ground. I think it's got to be either or.
Well, I also think you really have to keep in context, okay, what is the top and then what is the bottom? Okay, what is the difference in that range? Because that's critical to you being able to keep new players. They're not. Listen, the people who play Darkfall are a unique breed. They're the ones that are willing to take the punishment. They're the ones that understand that there is a goal and they're willing to force themselves through that. And typically, those type of personalities are only 5% of human population. So how many of those people do we have in this game? And when you start bringing in new players, remember, you have to think about, okay, what is going to be the cost of acquisition of new customers? That does come into play in a company like BPG. How much can they afford to keep spending on new customer acquisition?
Yeah, especially when most of the player base are made up of veteran players, and I'm gonna call them wolves. Let's just call them wolves. When you have too many wolves, they start eating each other, and then they quit. And you really need that sheep, that brand new player, that person who's not yet good at the game, but you gotta find a sweet spot to where they want to stick around and become a wolf themselves. And I feel like maybe right now, there's a lot of sheep that are leaving. A lot of people are leaving because
I'm going to
that
go one
gap.
step further. I'm going to tell you that we are on an island, and this island is full of predators. And once a day, we put new sheep onto the island. But here's the catch: the predators make the rules. How long do you think those sheep are going to last?
Yeah, I think it really is in. it's a tough one to find a solution, especially in a game like Darkfall. But from my standpoint, I feel like it's that, you kind of said it yourself too. It's that initial experience for the new players, and having a newbie island, for example, would be great for new players to come on and get the gist and the basic understanding of how the game works, and then dropping them off. But I think it needs to go a step further, which is they need to make lower end mobs. They need to bring up lower end mobs a little bit more to where they have better loot, and then kind of keep the high. I think the high tier, what they did with the original 7K mobs, the Airdoc and Dark Dragons used to drop 7K for anybody that doesn't know that, but now they drop 3,000 to 4,000 gold and significantly less loot. I think those are perfect, but I think they need to really bring up some of the other mobs just so you can kind of. I think just doing that economic change. Do you think that might bring it to a pretty good level, or what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, it would also promote, probably some newer players to get together and try to go take out some of those mobs because then they feel it might be worth it a little bit more. But again, for me, what's really key is just going to be that new player island concept, and because you really just got to hook them. You got, if we can hook them, whatever it might be. I've heard some people say that it was the ships, the ships in the game that hooked them, because it's such a unique experience. I've heard people say, "Oh, I went to a siege and it was just incredible, and after that, I was hooked." For me, when I first, you got to remember, I come from no FPS background. I come from EverQuest, which was as Care Bear as you can get, really, in terms of. I didn't go the full loot game. I didn't even understand the concept.
Yeah.
And here I jumped into this game, and I could dodge goblin arrows.
Right.
I was hooked.
Yeah.
That's what hooked me.
I think that's what hooked me too, man. I mean, well, my dad and I played, and so for the first 4 years, like before it even came out, like 2005, my dad was just like, would go on and on and on. He'd check the forums every day, and he'd be like, dude, this game's gonna be sick, so my head was already filled with grandeur, and I come from World of Warcraft and RuneScape, so when I got into this game, dude, it blew my freaking brain. I was like, holy, just like you, I was like, I can dodge, I can aim and all this other stuff. I was hooked from the very beginning. But now games have evolved, games have gotten better, and that's almost like the norm now.
Right, and now the little advantage that this game had now has a whole lot of competition, and a whole lot of competition that has realized that the attention span of the average user is a whole lot less, and they've curbed their game to that.
Yeah, people want shit, man, and they want it right now.
They want it yesterday.
They want it now. Now. Oh yeah, for sure though. But I even that being said, I think Darkfall, it can stay niche, and I think it can be the niche savior, right? Like those people that love Asheron's Call and Asheron's Call and RuneScape and what is it, Ace or Camelot? What was that game called? Age of Camelot or some shit. Games like that, Ultima. Those types of games, that genre, I think this game fuels those players. You know what I mean? This is definitely the king, the top of the line. And I think that if people just got in and, like you said, were able to experience that newbie island, yeah, it definitely would hook them. Kraken comes out and blows up your shit that you just spent all day building. Yeah, it definitely hook people.
Yeah, and I mean, we could put in, there's always little options. You can think outside the box. Like, a new player comes in and they're not really a new player, they're a veteran. So they can go talk to the little NPC on the dock and be like, bro, I need a boat. And they give him a boat and bam, he dies and he's in the land of Agon. I mean, there's all sorts of little ways to cater to anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that kind of brings up a good point. So you get on this island, and now you're a brand new. Well, you get off the island rather, and now you're on the mainland. You're a brand new player. You're in an NPC city. You don't know what's going on, but you see at the bottom of your HP that you got a little blue bar. your alignment. Now, so many people have zero idea how that shit works. Have you noticed that? Have you seen how many new players have jumped on another person's mount, instantly died, and they're like, "What the hell?" You know, they have no idea. So, like, okay, so that begs the question. Let me ask you: you've spoken to, like you said, hundreds, if not thousands, of new players, right? So, what do you think about the alignment system?
Oh God, I hate the alignment system.
Really?
I wanted something that was more faction based.
So you like the faction war? You like the race wars?
I did because I spent a lot of time in race wars. You know, I had a slow crawl to get to where I was. It took me a good year and a half playing this game before I really felt comfortable with it. And so I got to encounter a lot of the new player stuff that nobody will ever really encounter because it doesn't exist anymore. You know, I'd be out hitting ore nodes and an orc would come over and kill me. And that would happen maybe 3 times in a day. And then my my clan would start logging in, and the clan leader would log in and he'd be like, "Hey, so what's going on?" I go, "Ed, these orcs been killing me all day." "Oh, well, we're gonna gather a group and we're gonna go over there and we're gonna go kill some of them." And I'd be like, "Awesome, let's go." And we go over to orc lands and start killing the orcs that are killing, that are hitting the ore nodes over there. So I got to experience that. And then we would have big fights and go back and forth, and then the alphars would come in, and every once in a while you would see a wolf, and that was rare because you're in human lands, that's like really far away.
Right, yeah.
So I got to experience that grandeur. I call it grandeur, but everybody wants to dive into this game so fast and learn everything and absorb it so quickly, and then they're like, I've gotten to the end, there's nothing left. Well, that's your fault.
Yeah, then they quit.
Yeah, I got to experience it a lot slower. And I also have experienced other games where faction systems really, really worked. One of the concepts that I had, which would have created just as much content as this design does, is you have a specific faction and you can change that faction. Like, I could opt in to try to become factioned with Alfar. And through the process of maybe a quest line or something like that, you could eventually walk into an Alfar city and you're blue to Alfar, but everybody else hates you. Those options were available. The problem comes in is when you start going into clan stuff, which could have been easily neutralized, because when you go to a clan, why isn't everyone just neutral? If you're all going to be hostile and you're going to wind up doing this stuff anyway, and you're deciding that you're going to go into warfare anyway, why not just everyone that's in those clans, alliances, and in those outskirts is gray? Why does it have to matter?
I like how you brought up, it's like an opt-in sort of faction-based thing, right? System, opt-in faction war, whatever. I think it would be really cool, and I totally agree with you on that note about, being able to pick a side. And I think it would be really cool if you could pick a side, but like one thing that really didn't make sense to me since they made the change was just from a lore perspective alone. It doesn't make sense to me at all, because I'm a DF1 player. I come back, I was just like you. I'd be chilling in human lands and an orc would come up and kill me, or an alpha, or something like that. That was the norm. There was like always this race war going on, even if you were red or blue or whatever. But I think it would be cool if they tied it into the lore, maybe tied it into, some sort of gods or some shit like that, where it was not only a faction system, but it was a lore-based system as well. It's like, I'm a human and I'm betraying my human alliance so I could go be with, the Alphars and the Ghast or whatever the hell they're from. and I think it would be cool if, like a quest line and, maybe some cosmetic rewards or something from picking that faction and, having leaderboards or something. Do you think that type of style even fits in a Darkfall, though? Because it's supposed to be a sandbox, it's supposed to be do whatever the hell you want type of thing.
Well, that's your choice. It still is choice. I mean, you really have to wrap your head around what do you think is the definition of sandbox.
Right, yeah, that's true. I mean,
Darkfall, for the most part, is really not a sandbox. The only sandbox thing about Darkfall is that you can pretty much choose what you want to do within the game design.
Yeah, that's true. You can Hey, I mean, you can choose which spells you want to cast as a mage. You know, you're a mage. Like, yeah, well, I'm gonna cast this spell over that spell or whatever. But as far as
Yeah, and then that comes
sandbox,
to the whole thing about, we have mages and we have destros.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I've heard a lot of
I don't even
complaints
know if I
about
want to
that.
touch that subject, and it's so sore right now in the
Yeah,
forums,
it
man.
is. It is.
If
It
you look at
is.
if you look at the forums, it's like it's ridiculous, dude. Almost every other post is like, destroyers and mages. I mean, not that they don't make sound points. It's just like, how the hell do you begin to fix that whole debacle? Anyways, dude.
I just don't think that BPG will have the resources to
Dude, that's rough.
balance
Yeah,
anything else. I just don't. I mean, look at it for what it is. You
yeah,
can choose what you want to be, and it works. It does. It's not ideal. I
yeah. But it's
mean,
not.
personally,
My okay. So my whole point was that, like, it's not that sandboxy though. Really, if you really boil it down, like, it's not the combat. At least the combat isn't sandbox. The game itself is a little sandy, like there's different areas and stuff. But the combat, it's not really that sandy, dude. There's a meta, and if you don't
well,
follow
you
the
get
meta,
forced. Yeah,
you
you get
know,
forced into it.
yeah, it's like a forced meta, and it's constantly there. And I think one of the big problems
And that
is
goes
people don't want
back.
to change it.
That goes back to my. That goes back to my top and my bottom scale that I keep talking about. It's forced, and you have to get everything. I mean, how many people keep telling me, "Oh, I gotta go grind out so I can get eye rot." You
Oh,
know?
dude, I'm still, I'm like literally still going for spell reflect. Like I've been meditating it because I just got sick of trying to level it, dude. Like literally, spell reflect is I think the last main spell that I need, honestly, and then I think I might be done.
Yeah, and like I said, a lot of people I know, they have lots of alts and they don't go out. They pretty much do a lot of harvesting. Every once in a while they'll go out and they'll try and hit a certain spawn or something like that. But they're really
Yeah,
being very careful not to try to get into any conflict until they feel that they have everything that they need so that
yeah,
they can
until
get
they're
into the
like
fight.
roided out. Yeah, exactly, and that's the problem, man. People go out, they're like hardcore grinding mode in it, and then they get all roided out, and they come back and they just start dumpstering everybody, and they get bored and they quit.
Yeah, but that's human nature, and you're not going to change that. I mean,
No.
that's where you have to sit back and look at it for what it really is.
Yeah, I mean, there's people that grind
It's
hardcore,
just what
and
it is.
there's casuals. Yeah, it's wolves and sheep. It's pretty much the same thing. But I do want to go back to the alignment system. So, like in its current iteration, the alignment system, right? Do you think there's any incentive on actually staying blue?
Well, they built in those little incentives or whatever, but they're not really huge incentives. It's really just more like, okay, if I'm going to play this way, I'm play this way, or
Right.
otherwise, pretty much what they're doing is they're just abusing the mechanic, really.
Yeah.
I know a bunch of people that just go out, kill, and then go into the dungeons and farm the dungeons, through that whole process. Not
Yeah.
only do they get PvP because people are in there, so they're just killing people that are down there anyway. And then they're just getting their alignment back, and then they can come back into the cities. And some people just have trade alts and stay red.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think, like my opinion right now is there's just not enough incentive. Do you think they should add more incentive or just kind of change the alignment system in general?
Oh, I'd rather see it changed. I
Yeah.
just think that it's way too abused. There's nothing more frustrating to a player than they go out, they get killed by blue, and
Yeah.
then within a day, that blue is standing next to them at the bank.
Well, it's like
just-
there's nothing preventing them. Like, okay, so right now there's nothing preventing people from just murdering noobs. Just murdering blue noobs mercilessly for no reason. There's no downside to it other than the fact that you go red, but even then it's like it's not that bad.
Nope, and there's still people doing it. I mean, I see people coming back to the Bindstone that I know are new, and they just got killed. Probably were harvesting, but those PKers are out there, and they want the loot. They don't want to have to go farm, so they rather just kill, little
Murder
meat
the
sacks.
poor little sheep. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think that like being red should be a harder playstyle, or do you think it should be like more hardcore? Basically, okay. Do you think they should like nerf the red players or buff the blue players?
See, I don't believe in either of that. I really think that it's just a lifestyle choice. I mean, I remember when all the red players would just stay in the chaos cities, and that's kind of how they lived. Or they went to go live in the player cities, and that's how they function. This whole thing where they can keep coming back into the NPC cities, I think is where everything gets a little weird. Um, because it's just too easy for them to come back and be blue again.
Oh yeah, for sure, man, for sure. Um, all right. So on that note, I guess I'm just gonna leave you with one last question. I think I'm gonna make it a thing, where I ask every guest, if you will, if you could add in one thing or change one thing to the game, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good
Other
one.
than the island thing, of course. Other than the island thing.
Yeah, that was my pretty much my one thing. Well, I mean, there's one thing that I would add because I think it would help fix a lot of problems, and that would be I would put factories inside of player cities, and basically it'd be two types of factories. I mean, you could break it down to more if you wanted to, but the basic concept is you would have one factory for weapons and one factory for armor, and people would feed the factories with like ore, timber, whatever basic mat would be required to make these gear sets, if you will.
Yeah.
And they would spit out at a specific time a certain amount of gear sets, whether they be weapons or armor. And it wouldn't be like, like Timerfall the same way because you wouldn't see them on the map that they were coming up to be ready to be discharged.
Right.
It would be more of you would have to actually go to the holding and see it, and then you could get an idea of what the timer would be, and then that would create a little bit more of an organic conflict with the people who own the holding and people who would actually want to go there and maybe get the gear. Now the thing is, the gear would be lower dura, so it wouldn't be super valuable in terms of a value. That way, you still have the value to crafted mats from
Right. So it
crafters.
wouldn't be
You have to
a
find that.
crafted thing, yeah.
Yeah, you have to find that balance, but it would just be something that you could give to your troops. The people who are in your holding and they're there, and I think it would add a little bit of value to the holding itself.
Mass producing weapons and armor. I like it.
Yeah, and it would have to have a DK rate on it, which I know there's nothing in Darkfall like that, but for this specific mechanic, I really think you would have to add some kind of
Okay.
DK. If it's in the bank, it stares to DK. If it's equipped, it doesn't DK.
I see. Okay. Yeah, so it'd be like a different type of item other than, mob dropped and player crafted to be factory crafted, I guess is what you'd call it.
Yeah, it'd just be low dura and mainly just for defense, like for defense or attack.
Yeah.
Like you're getting ready to go attack a holding, you throw on a bunch of that gear because that's what you need.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. All right. Well, I think I'm going to end it on that. ANN podcast number 2, Lord Zannul. Thanks for stopping by, man.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, awesome. See you around.